Hi everyone. So look what I got with me today, a microphone. So hopefully my voice will not sound as muffled. Anyway, welcome to Live Longer World. My name is Astha and I am a huge advocate for longevity science and for optimizing health. I mean, who doesn't want to be healthier? And in the process, you can become wealthier and smarter too. All right. So today I want to discuss what is aging. Okay, you might be thinking, what kind of a question is that even? What do you mean, what is aging? Aging means that every year I'm getting older, I celebrate my birthday, and then someday eventually I'll get quite old and probably die. So that's what aging is. Well, let's rethink that. I will tell you what I think of aging. I think of aging a little bit differently than maybe you perhaps think of it, or maybe quite differently. But okay, let me try to convince you why I think of aging differently and what I think of aging as, and perhaps I can help you change your mind as well. Okay, so number one point is aging is damage accumulation that's happening in your body. Now, this point perhaps might be the easiest of all my points to grasp your head around. Because you can think of it as a simple analogy, right? Take a banana, for example. Over time, it starts accumulating damage. You leave it out in the air, there's oxidation. It'll become all gross and icky, and a simple way to call it is perhaps damage, and then it's old and you throw it out and you probably don't eat it, right? Okay, so the same thing is happening in our bodies. As you start getting older, you see wrinkles in your face. I hope I don't have any now. Uh, your knees start to get weaker, you develop lower back pains, and then over time, there are obviously more diseases that could come on, hopefully not. And why are we getting weaker? Why are we losing muscle with age? Why are we becoming frail? It's because there is damage that is accumulating inside our bodies. This might not be, as I said, such a hard point for you to grasp because we see it with technology and other items all day long, where your iPhone with time becomes slower, your cars become rusty, even the pages of books, start to get pretty yellow and old, right? And what's happening is just damage that's happening to these items. And similarly, it's damage that's happening to your body that's manifesting as aging. Now, if I dive into just the scientific perspective for a second, scientists actually do not have a definition of aging yet that they have agreed on. There are, however, 9 hallmarks of aging that have been identified. I won't go into those right now, but there are things like mitochondrial dysfunction, which means your mitochondria basically becomes dysfunctional, or there's genome instability, or there are epigenetic alterations that's happening to your DNA. But these are simply indications more so than anything that you are aging. But the overarching way, an easier way to think about it, would be that there's damage that's happening into your body that's manifesting in all of these dysfunctional things that's happening to you as you age. All right, so my point number 1 was that aging is damage accumulation that's happening inside your bodies. Moving on to point number 2, aging is a disease. A lot of you who are familiar with aging literature or have been reading some books on longevity might have already grasped your head around this concept that aging is a disease. But for those of you who aren't familiar with it, hear me out. I have a question for you. So what do you think is the biggest risk factor for getting lung cancer, for example? You might say smoking, right? But even though smoking increases your risk of getting cancer by 5-fold, being 50 years old increases your risk of getting cancer by 100-fold, and by the time you're 70, your risk of getting cancer increases by 1,000-fold. Isn't that remarkably crazy? Yeah, aging actually is the biggest risk factor for a lot of these diseases, including cancer, cardiovascular risk, arthritis, heart disease, stroke, etc. Let's take a step back and think about that for a second. What does that mean? That means that aging is the worst disease of all. It increases your risk of getting all these other diseases by 1,000 and that makes aging the worst disease. Okay, you might be wondering, sure, aging might be a disease, but why am I so hung up on calling aging a disease, right? It's because, unfortunately or fortunately, terminology actually matters. Unless we start calling aging a disease, it's hard to get drugs approved for actually treating aging. You need to wait for someone to get a disease like cancer to treat that disease. But you can be proactive and treat aging itself, which is the root cause of all these diseases. All right, I will leave point number 2 at that and move on to point number 3 now. You can slow aging. Yes, I think a lot of people just assume that aging is something that just happens to you, right? I'm getting older. Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm aging and that's it. No, that it doesn't have to be that way. What does it mean to slow aging? It means that you can delay at the least the onset of some of these age-related diseases that we spoke about, like cancer, arthritis, Alzheimer's, etc. It means that you can have more healthy years in your life. So if you think about an 85-year-old who is, say, physically active and physically able versus someone who is frail and weak and bedridden, the one who is physically active successfully managed to slow aging. They can still feel healthy and vibrant at the age of 85, at least to a larger extent than most other 85-year-olds would. So as science progresses in this field, we will learn about a lot more ways to slow aging, but there is already great evidence for some lifestyle ways which can help you prevent the onset of some of these diseases. And exercising, eating clean, caloric restriction or fasting, cold exposure, all of these go a long way in optimizing for your health span, which is the number of healthy years you have. So all I want to say is that aging is in your control. You can at least slow aging right now by practicing a longevity lifestyle. I will be covering a lot more of these longevity lifestyle hacks in my future videos, so you can definitely learn from that because I love to optimize my health at least. All right, so my point number 4 is that aging is reversible. Now, this is where you might think I'm throwing in science fiction or voodoo science, but hear me out again. What do I mean when I say aging is reversible? Remember, in point number 1, I spoke about how aging is damage accumulation that's happening inside your body. And now when I say aging is reversible, it means you can actually clean up some of this damage and reverse this damage and reverse your age in the process as well. In point number 3, I spoke about how you can slow aging, which is a little different, although the lines are a bit murky. And that means that you can slow the progression of some of this damage. But now I'm saying that you can actually reverse this damage. It's probably easiest to explain this point using the banana analogy I had spoken about earlier. So if you just have a banana, over time, it will accumulate damage. Now, the way it accumulates damage is going to differ depending on how you treat it. So for example, if you leave the banana in your bag under some books, it will get damaged sooner than if it's just laying on your kitchen top in a basket of fruits. And when I say you can slow aging using lifestyle factors and control it, this is basically what I mean. if you take care of your body, if you are exercising, eating clean, you are going to slow the progression of this damage, as opposed to if you don't take care of yourself, if you are not exercising, if you are smoking, etc. But now you say have this damaged banana and you want to bring it back to its original state. Is that possible? Well, perhaps with the banana it's not, but it is likely possible in humans. And this is where the science is getting extremely cool. So at least in mice, a lot of scientists have shown that they can make old mice to be younger using different ways, such as genetically engineering the mice, for example. And now there are tons of studies that are going on in humans as well to see if we can reverse this damage. For example, I was talking to the CEO of Repair Biotechnologies, which is a company that's trying to reverse the cholesterol damage in your body, which leads to atherosclerosis. Yep, so my point number 4 is saying that the future of aging can be quite different than the way you've envisioned it. It's quite possible that you live to be 150, 200, or even if it's just 100 or 90, you feel quite healthy and vibrant because you've reversed some of this damage, and at the least you've slowed some of this damage. Okay, so I'll leave you with those 4 points, and hopefully they've made you think of aging a little differently. My first point was that aging is damage accumulation that's happening inside your body. My second point was that aging is a disease. My third point was that you can slow aging by slowing some of this damage in your body. And the fourth point is that aging is reversible. One last thought exercise I want to leave you with. A few years ago, everyone thought cancer is just inevitable. It's just something that happens as you age. But as science made progress, we found out the reasons as to why cancer happens. And at least we found out ways to cure it. And now no one thinks that cancer is just something that happens to you. It's something that people think is treatable. And I think that's how people are going to start thinking about aging as well. Yes, it's time to start thinking differently about aging.